Alright, unit size. What is unit size exactly? From a developer's perspective, it is a chunk of code that is too long to quickly grasp what it's doing. From a managerial perspective, it is, let's say, a paragraph that is too big in order to understand what is actually happening in that paragraph, what the reader is supposed to get from that paragraph. I'll give you a concrete example on the next slide. But how do you measure it? From a developer's perspective, obviously, you just count the number of lines within a unit. Now, I hear you saying, we counted the lines before. And that was called lines of code. Now, lines of code, that metric counted all lines of code within the entire system. Now we're only counting the lines of code within a paragraph. I'll show you what I mean in just 1 minute. So unit size, you do that because you want to measure the relative size of a unit. So you have a system contained of multiple units. Why is one unit bigger than another unit? For instance, maybe the biggest unit also contains a lot of duplication. And here you see the importance of combining several metrics. Never ever look at one metric in isolation. Always combine these metrics in order to quickly grasp what is going on. See yourself as a, let's say, a software doctor. And based on the health of this system, you can basically see where you need to operate. So with unit size, you just count the number of lines within a unit, and that will give you a relative size of a unit compared to other units. Now, the common knowledge here is that the longer the unit, the more complex it can become, the more duplicated it can become, so it's more difficult to maintain. And it could also have, if it's more difficult to maintain, you can more easily make mistakes, and that could have an effect of your system in production. The common objective, obviously, is that the person that has written that paragraph often thinks that that is not too long, but that's not the test, right? The test is that in true software quality is that you basically, as a non-writer of the code, of the text, you still quickly can grasp what that piece of text is actually doing. Because if it's not the case, then it's not that clear from the text itself. And that's the true test. What do you need to do? Obviously, you need to refactor it. When you have a large paragraph, then you need to refactor it into smaller paragraphs so that it becomes easy to understand what is happening directly. Now, before I give you a concrete example, I want to put this metric into perspective. So what I just explained is counting the number of lines within one paragraph in order to assess whether this paragraph is larger than the next one, right? And you know that all these other chapters also contain paragraphs. So you want to know where are the largest paragraphs and why is that the case? With lines of code, the first metrics, we counted lines of code in every component, in every file, in every unit, so that everything was then assessed. And so this is an assessment of a smallest unit and how small is actually small. And lines of code was actually all the lines of code to assess the scope of the system and the total size of the system. Now, up to the concrete example, consider this one, that you now have a paragraph and all the text is just pasted underneath. So from a managerial perspective, this one is hard to read, even though it's a foreign made-up language, which also makes it hard to read, obviously. But because it's not structured, it's harder to read. So you can help yourself, help your reader, and help the one that's actually maintaining this text or code by restructuring it. Let me give you an example. So consider this one. It is the same text, but now it is restructured in such a way that you can easily grasp what it's actually doing. So this is, let's say, 2 sentences. So this is 3 lines with 2 sentences. And so now you can actually grasp what is happening. So now you have some other group of sentences here. You have some group of sentences here. And it makes it all more easier to grasp.